So very happy to have back on the show Hani Almadhoun. He's a senior director of philanthropy at the UN Relief Works Agency USA, co-founder of Gaza Soup Kitchen. He's been on before. Tragically, he's lost countless families of his family members in Gaza, including his brother, Chef Mahmoud Almadhoun, co-founder of the Gaza Soup Kitchen. And he's back on it. His great article in The Nation about what's going on in Gaza, the redevelopment. So, Hani, nice to see you, my friend.
Good to be back with you, Dean. Thank you for having me again.
So I want to talk about, for you to share with listeners, what's really going on in Gaza right now. We'll get to the actual military actions by the Israeli military, which is killing people, 30 and all, but what is the actual living conditions in terms of it's winter there, it's cold, they're intense, is there water, is there heat, are people suffering and dying from hypothermia? What can you share?
Yeah, obviously things are dire in Gaza with the cold. There's a lot of flooding intense when there's rain, and mind you, if a little element, if you live in a house, it doesn't bother you as much. But if you are 80% of the people living inside the tent, you're very sensitive to those things. We've seen videos of flooding tents. We have seen improvement in the food situation in terms of there is more food in Gaza now available. It's for purchase. It is not food being handed out. That's a part of
Wow.
the engineered suffering in Gaza. But also the killing never stopped. Today we've lost 23 Palestinians. 3 days ago it was 31 Palestinians, including an extended relative of ours. So there is no directions, no sense of direction where the Palestinians in Gaza are going. They're not being consulted about their future, and they're being otherized. Everything from food to solar power panels or things like that are being, or power banks for your phone is being weaponized by Israel. And there is tight control of the economy. And glad to see some opening of Rafah, but that's also not the good news that we had hoped. So there's a lot of movements. Most of it is not as great as it seems.
So when you mentioned just now 80% of the people of Gaza are in tents, that's the number? 80% of 2 million
No,
people?
80% of the people around Gaza City have lost their homes.
Oh,
Maybe a
80%
little
of
bit
Gaza
less.
City, which is a big
Yeah, in central
population center.
area, maybe 6%. But a lot of people are sheltering in a storage unit, a supermarket that's been turned into a home, or living in tents, sometimes in schools that are turned into shelter. If, believe it or not, people still live in hospital hallways. So there is a lot of difficult housing arrangements, and you understand Israel has not allowed any cement or any containers for people to live in those. We're bargaining with Israel to get more firewood, not even cooking gas. They're not allowing cooking gas. In Gaza now, the wooden pallet that you throw once you receive your shipment, this is a treasure in Gaza because that's the only fuel people have. And as you know, Gaza is pretty flat. There is not many trees like in the West Bank. There is mountains and trees. Gaza is pretty flat. So even when we cook, we need to be in our best behavior so Israel can give us pallets so we can chop up and prepare meals for people.
Well, when Netanyahu and his regime do not view Palestinians as human beings, that's how you can do this to them because it's the most inhumane thing. In a winter, not even giving firewood, not giving you're trying to get firewood, not giving gas to heat, not allowing reconstruction of homes. It's because, bluntly, the Christians and Muslims don't matter to Netanyahu. I mean, it's a supremacist movement that he's the head of. So, what about education for students for school? I know they were devastated. It was a genocide of the education system before it was a genocide of the people. I remember people talking about this on the show that they was just devastated. Any return to any kind of education for the students?
Right, there's about 500,000 Palestinian children who have not gone to school in going 3 years now. It's not pretty. Kids miss the school, believe it or not, and people want to be going to school. But most of these schools, if not all of them, have been turned into shelters. We are seeing efforts by organizations like UNRWA, the largest humanitarian actor inside Gaza, that's UNRWA, trying to start something called temporary learning centers, where this is like inside the schoolyards. The classrooms are taken for families to live in. They will put a couple of tarps and wooden stakes and then start educating. We anticipate about 100,000 kids in Gaza are in sort of informal education, 3 hours a day. Some people are studying on their tablets, but as you know, internet is spotty in Gaza and unavailable for a lot of people. Believe it or not, in the winter, the internet gets worse because there is no sun to charge the solar panels that power up the routers. So that's also something people don't think of. When it's sunny, people can charge up a little bit hard, but they still do it. When it's winter and there is no sun, it takes longer to power up a phone. So a lot of these struggles are happening in Gaza. Then we're also seeing NGOs not being allowed to bring food as much. Some food is getting in as an aid. I would say, maybe estimating about 20 trucks from 300 trucks are like for aid. The rest is for sale. As you know, people have not worked in 2 years. Where are they going to come up with the money? And if you wanted to help somebody in Gaza, the banks are not working properly and you can't transfer. It is all by design. The idea is to create as much suffering. The optics are good. The Israelis are really good with the optics, but the reality is this is not an accident. Israelis allow, for example, jars of Nutella. They flood the Gaza market, but they wouldn't allow antibiotics and medications because they know they're gonna get a clip. Oh, look, this guy is not starving. He's eating Nutella. But the reality is there is lack of many food essentials where animal protein for the longest time wasn't allowed into Gaza. We're starting to see it now in the last 2 months. So a lot of those things are happening, and Israel is managing the optics really well. But they've also taken what I believe in my personal capacity, a genocide, and took it offline. Now they killed about 60 people in the matter of 3 days. That's a lot. These are people
Sure.
that were alive when the ceasefire happened. Unfortunately, Palestinians continue to be killed by Israel. Israel can say they crossed. You could be asleep in your tent, and Israel will say in the news, this person crossed the yellow line. We have cases of people, they were in their homes, and then Israeli press says they crossed the yellow line that they made up. My home in Beit Lahia in the initial ceasefire was in the safe area. The Israelis woke up one day and they said, let's move the line 200 meters more inland. So they took more of the land, and our family's home is now, if you go, a drone will probably fire at you. Like we've lost so many of our neighbors there. But I want to talk about things that people can do. This is a humanitarian catastrophe. You see Israel banning amazing NGOs that do the work that they are
Yeah.
supposed to, and they starve the community. So yes, there is food in Gaza, but there is no means for people to pay. If you wanted to send money to Gaza as an organization, you will be challenged. So one of the quick pivots that Honor was doing, especially for Ramadan, give people cash. So we might not get our trucks of flour. We give people, a family, about $400 one-time payment, and then they could go buy from the market. So that's really one of the better ways to do it. But as you know, there is responsibility for giving away cash, and you have to vet everybody because money is fungible, as they tell us. So we have to try to help the community as much as we can. People need to know UNRWA is irreplaceable. UNRWA remains in the ground, and I hope people go to unrwausa.org to learn more about that. But I want to take off my UNRWA hat for a minute and just talk about stuff that you want to talk about.
Well, no, but this is all what I want to talk about. Is UNRWA even allowed? I've read that the Israeli government had banned UNRWA from operating for at least a little period of time. So is that not? Is not a full ban? Is it not gotten into effect? Well, what's going on there?
Yeah, it can be very confusing for folks. So Israel did pass legislations to ban UNRWA. Remember, UNRWA is not a creature of Mars. It is a UN agency, and Israel
Right.
is a member of the UN. They have obligations, and nobody's forcing them to honor these obligations. So they've banned UNRWA. They've taken out the headquarters in Jerusalem, part of it. But the good news is people can still work virtually. We have UNRWA, the agency. Remember, I work for UNRWA USA, an American charity that supports the work of the agency. People can work remotely. And, with digital wallets, you can have a big impact. But what is happening is they're taking away schools, especially in areas where, like, between Jerusalem and the West Bank. And that makes it harder for UNRWA to function. It remains in the West Bank, it remains in Gaza. Despite whatever the Israeli press try to tell you, they've spent millions of dollars in propaganda, anything short of, Israel already banned any UNR, any UNRWA staff who is a foreign visa holder. They kicked out about 40 about a year ago. They said anyone who works for UNRWA and have a foreign visa, they have to leave. Then that happened, which leave only the Palestinian staff in Gaza. So they continue the work. They continue
Yeah,
to provide help. Like, what sort of help are we talking about? Because the organization is under attack. UNRWA right now is the largest provider of healthcare. You don't need the borders to go see the doctor, right? You go see about 15,000 people go see their doctor and nurses every day. And that's the size of the Madison Square Garden. Every seat has a sick patient, and UNRWA provides those services. Water, the largest provider of water, about 100, 120,000 people get water, clean water from UNRWA's, they pump and they deliver it to the different shelters. About 100,000 people live inside UNRWA's buildings. It is not easy. And I want people to know that, the help through UNRWA gets delivered. Like I mentioned, the cash assistance. Yes, we are not allowed to bring in maybe where we have 6,000 trucks, but we only get five trucks a day. Then we can give people cash so they can buy from the local market. That's really a very good and a direct way to help the community. People are, it's not the lack of food, it's also access to food. That's key, Dean. You
sure.
could have your next door neighbor, one has too much and people have too little. And that's the situation in Gaza. And it is a soup kitchen run economy right now in Gaza. Everybody's honestly, out of scarcity, we see it every day. I hope you follow my personal initiative with my family, the Gaza Soup Kitchen. You see kids, we leave the audio even. We don't even put the song because we want to hear people hear how desperate things are and bleak. And because people, look, they don't have kitchens. Where are they going to cook? They live in a classroom. People don't think about that. Tents in the rain. You know how hard it is to get a fire and when it rains in the outdoors, it's very complex. You could choke. There is a lot of issues we're not talking about, but at least you and I are trying. You're talking about it. I'm trying to help as much as I can. But to be honest with you, it's been really emotionally draining seeing that, we're up against an ocean and we only have a spoon. And that's just demoralizing in so many ways.
Yes, I can't even imagine, to be blunt. I mean, I see the images of Gaza, and I can't believe in the modern era this could have happened, and that there were two sides to it, and that there were people in America and today still in Congress and organizations that support the genocide. And anybody who doesn't denounce it is supporting it, in my view. I mean, it's a genocide. If you don't want to use the term genocide, you want to use mass slaughter, that's fine. That's up to you. I'm not going to make you use the academic term for it. It doesn't. But if you're going to recognize it's a mass slaughter, it was a goal to destroy and exterminate the society, not all the people, but the society, to make the infrastructure, to make it unlivable so people will leave. That was the goal. There's no doubt that is the goal. And you have people in the Netanyahu administration openly advocating the removal of Palestinians, all the Christians and Muslims from the West Bank, from Gaza, and even recent polls showing nearly 60% of Israelis within Israel want all the Christians and Muslims out. They want to move them out of the country. They would, if they had their way, they would have do ethnic cleansing within Israel of Christians and Muslims. They want to make it Jewish only, the same way the settlements are in the West Bank right now, Jewish only. And that's the world. And at one point it wasn't like that, but Israel as a nation has moved to the right. And as you see with Netanyahu being there, I'm chatting with Hani Almadhoun, Senior Director for Philanthropy at the UN Relief Works Agency USA. So, Hani, you wrote a really good article for The Nation. The title is Gaza is a crime scene, not a real estate opportunity, referencing this new Gaza, Jared Kushner and these other guys that want to build there. I don't even know what is going on. You look at those images, I'm like, who's going to live there? I mean, if it was all for the Palestinians and they were going to build it for everyone, and it was just for Palestinians, I'm like, this could be interesting. But I read it and I don't believe this is for the Palestinians. So what can you share?
Uh, Before I go talk about the op-ed which was published in The Nation, I want to recognize how wonderful this publication is. They just had a Gaza takeover in The Nation
Yep.
yesterday. All the authors
Yep.
from Gaza, voices from Gaza. I live in the US, the safety of the US, relative safety of the US now, but many voices from Gaza wrote for themselves on The Nation. And I think that's just unprecedented. So I advise people to go check out those
Yeah.
stories I think I statements are very powerful. Another topic we were talking about, the 70,000 number of killed Palestinians. Look, It's a lot more than 70,000. Here's why. These numbers are only people who were verified inside the hospital. So when my first sibling was killed, Majid, we had to take the body to the hospital to confirm and give us a death certificate. When Mahmoud, Allah yarhamu, was killed, my second brother, we had to go to the hospital, confirm, and then get a death certificate. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of Palestinians who were buried. There's just bones and sneakers. There is a lot of Palestinians who are still buried in anonymous graves. There are missing Palestinians. I understand I'm related to a few of those folks. In addition to that, there is also, in addition to the ones who did not get to the hospital, is the people who died from lack of care. I have an uncle, he has a dialysis, he has a kidney failure, and he died because no dialysis. That's linked to the conditions created by Israel, heart attacks, all of these things. There is no natural death in Gaza. That's a fact. So we need conservative genocide experts and war experts, they tell you it's three times the official numbers. So if you're looking at 70,000, which the Israelis, they've always denied, they questioned this, they weaponized. They asked me to go prove that my brothers were killed, and they said, oh no, this is a Hamas related numbers. It was very mean. And now they say, okay, these numbers are accurate. Of course, they're accurate. Israel has every single name in Gaza, every ID. They have access to every single data. They've always knew who's alive and who's dead. And they just wanted to take this, drag it on. Many anchors who kept pushing and saying these numbers are delayed. Look, I wrote to the nation as, I was looking at this Kushner-Trump plan, and my friends at IMEU said, hey, can you write more about this? So I went ahead and I just gave a little bit more details about how this is really a plan where zero Palestinians were consulted, probably a few millionaires, a few uh, people who have links to Bibi Netanyahu, like Jared Kushner and all those folks, were consulted and they made this plan. Look, they're talking about New Gaza, but they have not admitted what happened to the old Gaza. They still think nothing happened, nothing to see, and they're building condos and all that. And you know that the Israelis were discussing, they want to make sure Rafah, when it opens, the crossing, more Palestinians leave than come in. And that's sort of
Right.
part of the forced, soft ethnic cleansing. And also, they want to make it very expensive. My family owns land in Gaza. They're probably going to tell us, no, this is a digital ownership now and some kind of gimmick. My best hope is the Palestinian will survive for 2.5 more years until there is another plan or there is a new thinking in Washington, D.C., but we're in for a very bleak period of time. The administration has not been forthcoming. I hope you and I would be happy if they would build Gaza and give it to the people
Yeah.
back and all that stuff. I want more Americans to go to Gaza, teach, be therapist, engineer, talk about IT, teach us chip design. I want that. But these guys, that's not the plan. That's very forced, they turned Gaza, which is a crime scene, as you've noted, into a real state of Purshiri, where we're going to have some millionaires from the US and the Gulf who have no best intentions for the Palestinians. I asked you any person who signed on this plan, give me one person who said, oh, Gaza's being genocided or we need to stop this. None of those. Look at and the Palestinians are they have few Palestinians in this peace council. They're the help. They're inside the house. The Trump people will have the deed in their hand, and then these are the help inside. They manage things for them. I I do not want to get too political, but I'm worried as a Palestinian. I want to give people the benefit of the doubt, but what we've seen publicly does not give me confidence that this plan is one, workable. Two, it's going to be fair because those people have yet to recognize that the Palestinians have suffered. They've always given us lectures. They blamed us for our own misery and our own death and our killing. They've never said we actually messed up. We armed Israel. We were silent. We vetoed UN resolutions. We're oopsie. We're wrong. Let's make it right. That's not the kind of plan they're offering now. It's not too late. Gaza needs a lot of help. The US is such a powerful actor. You cannot do that and defund agencies like UNRWA and World Health Organization and UNICEF because they're the ones who are keeping the Palestinians alive. And it breaks my heart to see this announced in Davos in front of people in suits. Look, when my own family was being starved, none of these guys brought food or even heard our plight. And now they claim they know what's our best interest.
Well, that's what colonists do. And you don't have to worry about being political on this show. We are completely political. This is what we do. It's our people. So just so people understand, you were saying before, now they're getting about 5 trucks a day. It used to be how many trucks a day?
So what the numbers are changing daily. So on average, we need about 500 to 600 trucks daily into Gaza. That
To
number
feed
when the
everybody.
factories was working, right? So now I think we've gotten to 400 trucks daily, which is good because the Israelis were bragging about 28 trucks. So we have more trucks coming in. But remember, those things are not aid. Meaning, if UNICEF wants to bring containers of food supplement, they may say, okay, only 2 trucks. But the guy who wants to sell jars of Nutella will give them 10 trucks. So these things, because Israel makes money from these trucks. So the 8 trucks, there is not fees, there is no security payment, there is no Israeli broker benefiting much money from it. So the commercial trucks are allowed because there is an Israeli who gets a cut. But when an agency brings aid, it is really understood that you don't charge them. And that's sort of like, but the ultimate goal is to create as much pain in Gaza as possible because we've seen it. They've denied food to people. They started operation called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation to murder Palestinians. And, they know the conditions. They made up lies like, hey, aid is being stolen, all that stuff. And it turned out the people who were stealing the aid, they were commissioned by Israel to go steal the aid so the Palestinians won't get it. So the aid would go into Gaza, cameras will film, and then at night, these Israeli aligned gangs will go steal the aid and sell it in the market. And instead of the aid going to the right people. So there is a lot of details. I can't wait for an Israeli clearing their conscience 10 years from now to tell us how mean, how vile they were toward Gaza. It's already happening. I'm seeing news of Israelis coming clean. In fact, some of them are inflicting self-harm for the horrors that they've inflicted on Gaza. We read everyday news like that. It's sad. I don't want to make any political points. My point is Gaza is suffering, and this is an engineered situation. This is not an accident. This is something. Look at Rafah. Israelis made a new checkpoint inside Gaza to go humiliate and interrogate Palestinians and take their stuff and then release them after there is no treatment that says that. It says Egypt, the Europeans, and the Palestinians. Israel went around and said, hey, we're going to start our own checkpoint 500 meters away from the official Rafah crossing, where they have armed gangs blindfolding the Palestinians coming into Gaza, scaring the SHIT out of them, and then saying, okay, now you go. The point is to inflict fear. I want to go to Gaza, visit my family. When I hear these stories, it's going to be like, oh, do I really want to go? So
Right.
that's sort of like they're doing this
I,
because they want to eventually empty Gaza. This thing, they've said this publicly. This is not some
I
conspiracy
know.
theory. These are government level conversations.
And before you came on, we were talking about ICE and what ICE is doing in America, and the goal is to terrorize. And even threats now that they're going to use ICE around the elections to put them by the polling places. And even if they can't actually have enough ICE agents to go everywhere, it's to send a message to be afraid, not to go vote if you have an accent. And even as a U.S. citizen, they've detained U.S. citizens left and right. And they'll detain you for a day and you can't vote. And how many people want to go through that? So it's a similar idea. It's the use of force to terrorize and deter people from exercising their rights, and in this case voting, in the case of Gaza going back to their home. And obviously there's a linkage between certain U.S. police departments and the IDF in Israel with joint training. I'm not sure if ICE ever trained with the IDF or not. I should look into that. I'm not sure about that. I don't want to say it if it's not true. I'll look into that. What's your reaction? We talk about the suffering of the Palestinian people in Gaza horribly. Over the weekend, the Trump administration sent $6.5 billion more of weapons, free weapons, to Netanyahu, a man charged with war crimes, who the ongoing genocide is continuing, and included Apache helicopters, combat land vehicles, and this on top of the billions and billions of other dollars that has been supplied. It doesn't affect the people of Gaza per se, because they were never going to give this money to the people in Gaza. But I wish that if the U.S. was going to give money to Israel, they would give money to the people in Gaza. I think the money, our tax dollars should go for Americans, but call me old-fashioned about that. But having aid, like if we want to give $10 million in food aid to the people in Gaza and $5 million in food aid to the people of Israel who needed food, and we made a decision from a geopolitical point of view that's good for our nation, that's one thing. Billions of dollars? Ridiculous. Ridiculous. This is our tax dollars. What is going on?
Yeah, I this country has been good to me. They gave me safety when I was looking for a home. It's been my home. My two daughters were born here. I've worked here. I've built a family. We all have questions right now about the choices we've made. I hope this country continues to thrive. But I hope we continue to also protect our civil rights. And I implore your listeners to always vote, 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 vote. A Facebook post is not gonna make a big change. Maybe it would, but I think people need to vote. Don't boycott elections, boycott products. That's really what I tell you. And then also get comfortable giving to political campaigns. A lot of people in our community or circles of the Arab American and Muslim community are learning to open the
Right.
purse a little bit and give to political campaigns. That's key. Obviously, I'm here to talk as an American voter, and I'm concerned, but there's also good things about this country that will make sure that it continues to be okay. I have a question about that. I talk about this with Roa, my wife, every day about should we go live somewhere? Should we move? Because it is overwhelming. I was today in DC for work, and I've seen many ICE officers walking around. As a Palestinian, this could be triggering, or it could be like, okay, I'm used to this, right? So this
Right.
is this is what kind of country do you want to have? And I always vote, even in small elections. I vote when I can. I think it's important, and we need to be engaged. We have to write to our elected officials. We're seeing some slow change, but continue to speak out for Gaza, for the Kurds, for Sudan, for all those people who are hurting, because there is truthfully, I used to think, yeah, you talk about intersectionality. We're seeing it right now. The intersectionality. There is no person who's going to be, oh, it's okay to murder kids in Gaza and be right about what's happening in Minneapolis. So this is really, people have to think about that. And we get desensitized. We're like seeing dead kids all the time, and all of a sudden it's happening here. And it's just really, as a nation, I think everybody's like asking questions right now. And I hope one thing is like people continue to be invested in the political game, spend dollars where their values are. And Dean, I also like to challenge our community and say, look, I tell you this, my two brothers were killed using American weapons and American technology that you just mentioned, but I want us to reclaim the American flag. We're the ones who say, keep the money here, help the intercity kids, build better schools, build better roads. This is what we should. I thought, like, yes, help Gaza, help those they need, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to be like, hey, here's chump change for Gaza, and we're going to give billions of weapons. And I think, we have to really, this is our country, and we want what's good for it. And what's good for it is not killing little kids or families or nurses here or overseas.
Yes, I mean, look at how the reaction by many to the 5-year-old Liam Ramos, who was in his Spider-Man backpack and his blue hat, and he got headlines across the country, and he was taken to a camp in Texas and thankfully released by a judge. Now, extrapolate that out, folks, to thousands of children in Gaza slaughtered. And if you're on TikTok, if you're on Instagram, if you have in the circles with the algorithm and you have friends who are Palestinian or supporting Palestinian humanity, you've seen images of dead children. We've been seeing it for 2 years. So the reaction, if more Americans saw that after what they saw with Liam Ramos and knowing that it's our weaponry that is doing the killing, it's not this thing in a vacuum. We are involved. We are complicit as a nation by continuing to give weapons to Netanyahu, even they were killing children in the beginning. Thousands of little Liam Ramoses have been killed thanks to our weapons in the hands of a war criminal, Benjamin Netanyahu. And this weekend we gave $6 billion more in weaponry to that same war criminal. It still falls on us. And I think if Americans were to see it, and we saw the younger generation, they've been so moved. I mean, to the point where they had Larry Ellison buy TikTok to stop it. I mean, we know that this is not a conspiracy theory. One of the big things was TikTok is hurting the Netanyahu and his agenda. And the supporters of Israel in America didn't like it. So you got Larry Ellison, big supporter of Israel, a guy who's made massive donations to the IDF and buys TikTok, and we're not going to see those images anymore. Although other places people will see it, but so Hani, before I let you
You've
go,
seen the
where can
video
you?
of the TikTok guy who said, if you use certain terms, we're going to ban your account. They've already closed accounts for amazing Palestinian journalists and influencers, deleted their
Right.
footage. Thanks. See, Dean, that's where we win. We create alternative products. You and I have been, hearing about this new tool that's called Upscrolled. It's a Palestinian, Australian, Jordanian fella who created such an amazing product, and people flock to it because shadow banning is truthfully real. I see it in my line of work. They could control what stories you want to see. And that's why we have to stay, don't just tell me don't, how they said, don't drink certain fizzy water or something like that. Go create an alternative. And that's good. And again, I'm
Right.
here as in my personal capacity to share these things with you. But I think
No, I
ultimately,
understand. I'm
I
on
think
Upscrolled. I have 57 followers now on Upscrolled. I'm getting there. I'm going
okay,
to
you gotta
catch
get
up to.
one more. You're gonna get one more
Oh,
tonight.
I'll look for you, and you follow me, Henny, because I have so few
Yes, yes.
followers. I know when I get a new one, and I'll follow you back. But it's new, and look, everything grows from somewhere, and I think it's great. The last thing you mentioned a lot about helping the people in Gaza. People are listening. How can they help in America to make a donation where they can be sure that it'll get to the people in Gaza, and also it's not going to flag something with the Trump administration sending ICE to your house?
So look, UNRWA USA remains in compliance with all US regulations. You still get tax credit for donating to UNRWA USA. So this is easy. There is nothing in the US law says you can't support the charities like UNRWA USA. I do ask people to follow also at the Gaza Soup Kitchen. We publish some good stories on Instagram and all that stuff to just show you the reality in Gaza. Also, as invested we are in humanitarian giving, and your $10 or $15, and we're going to talk about Ramadan soon and Zakat, but really
Yeah.
focus about also getting engaged in the political. Tell your politician you care about this issue. Go to their coffee hour and ask them about what did you do. This is, people are now changed and they need to know you care about this. It's not just Hani and Mr. Obeidallah, it's also Nancy, Billy, and Chuck asking them about this. And we don't do much by being alone, and with the allies like you, allies from the LGBTQ community and the African American communities, as early polls showed, and Asian Americans moving really faster, younger demographic. I got invited to go to speak to the Jewish synagogue in Philadelphia. What's unique about this is usually I speak to Jewish Americans who are younger. This one was people who are like older than my dad, who wanted to
Wow.
hear from Gaza about the plight of the Palestinians. And the person who organized it is an Israeli woman from Haifa. And her rabbi, who's never been to Israel, denied the platform. She's an Israeli and she wanted to talk about Gaza. He said, no, you cannot have this space. She said, I'll show you. She went to another Jewish organization, I think called the Ethical Society in Philadelphia. She got the venue and we spoke there. And this is key. It's not just young Jewish Americans like my friends at the Rabbis for Ceasefire or Jewish people for Food Aid for Gaza who've done wonders and got food to Gaza. It's also about the Quakers. It's also about the people who care about my LDS friends at the Mormon church where I went to BYU.
Right.
The people are not okay with what's happening in Gaza. They might be silent. They might feel like, what do I do? What do I say? But a lot of people are taking actions that might be silent. And I hope they carry this into the election when we have one, inshallah.
Inshallah, God willing, we will, and we're going to have one. We're going to work really hard at it. Well, Hani, thank you, my friend, for spending some time with us and going through this, and you're doing amazing work. Your organization, yourself, and the Gaza Soup Kitchen that you co-founded, and I wish you the best. I look forward to chatting with you in the future.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'll follow you up and up scroll now.
Up scroll, follow me. I'll follow you right back. All right, take care,
Yeah.
bro.